More life and more blessings. Rise up and give thanks and stop stressing. More life and more blessings. Rise up and give thanks and stop stressing. More life and more blessings. Rise up and give thanks and stop stressing. We don't take no L's, we take lessons. They can't stop our vibe, we keep them guessing. I used to be depressed, my G. Felt like a waste man, like Mr. Bean. Hearing voices, demons troubling me. But then I had to rise up, I had to get myself clean. 5 years later, now I'm feeling so free. 1 year now in the music scene. I networked and I showed my worth. And now 1 year on 500,000 streams. Okay, one good vibe, best book high. All praises to the Most High. Make me feel so fly. No bad vibes, no bad vibes. Everything's blessed over this side. More life and more blessings. Rise up and give thanks and stop stressing. More life and more blessings. Rise up and give thanks and stop stressing. More life and more blessings. Rise up and give thanks and stop stressing. We don't take no L's, we take lessons. They can't stop our vibe, we keep them guessing. Life is a blessing, G. Every day's a new day, you get me. 1 minute my brain was thinking straight. Next thing I'm getting love from underpaid. Mad, life is just mad. I remember when I thought I was going mad. My brain had me feeling like I was a madman. And now I'm getting love from Steve-O, the madman. Book high, one good vibe, best book high. All praises to the Most High. Make me feel so fly. No bad vibes, no bad vibes. Everything's blessed over this side. More life and more blessings. Rise up and give thanks and stop stressing. Oh, yeah. More life and more blessings. Rise up and give thanks and stop stressing. More life and more blessings. Rise up and give thanks and stop stressing. More life and more blessings. Rise up and give thanks and stop stressing. More life and more blessings. 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 More life and more blessings.
All right, more life and more blessings. All praises to the Most High for another Yom Shishi evening. You are live and direct once again with your Akazaki Yahoo, giving all praises, honor, and great esteem unto the Most High Power, Yahuwah Bahashem, Yahushua HaMashiach, and to the 12 tribes of Israel who are scattered to the 4 quarters of the earth. I say Shalom, Wa Baruchim, that is peace and blessings. And I cannot wait to the day that the Most High brings us back together and we are once again 12 tribes, one family, one nation under the Most High Power, under one covenant, back in our own land with a heart of flesh and no more a heart of stone, with our enemies, our adversaries, and all of those who hate us under our feet. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
I'm joined this evening by my most esteemed Kenaniah. Shalom, Aki.
Hey, Shalom, Aki. Shalom, Yasharal. Call Halal Yahweh. Bahashem. Hamashiach wa Malak. Yahweh Shah. Barakatah.
Hallelujah. All praises to Yahweh in the name of his beloved son, Yahweh Shah, the Messiah and King. Bless you. Hallelujah. It is another Yom Shishi evening, and we are back with a video review of astronomical proportions. You are live with your Hazaki Yahoo and the Kenaniah. We have interesting media from our good brothers over at Black Journals, also from Black Culture United. We have a quadfecta for you. 4 good videos to definitely review this evening. And stay with us because it's going to be all good stuff. Let's get to the first one. This one comes from the good brothers over at Black Journals. And this first video is titled Expose who, oh, Slacky, my bad, that's the wrong one. This first video is titled, Putin Again Unveils the Black Biblical Icons in Russia's Secret Vaults. So this is more information about Putin revealing those icons. Let's get to it. All praises to the Most High.
Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
Looking right at what you see now, do you want to take a solemn guess at what we have again here before you today in this video? These are the very authentic IDs of the paintings of the very people in the story of the good book, the Bible. Only a year ago, the global community ran agog with the buzzing news of certain posters, said to have been found in some secret vault which, it was said, had at last been opened to the world by the President of the Russian Federation, Vladimir Putin. And, in these posters, were found black biblical Israelites and icons. For centuries, Western art has portrayed biblical figures as white Europeans, but ancient icons and artifacts stored in Russia's vault reveal a startling truth. Many biblical icons were, in fact, black. There are a whole load of them, hundreds and thousands of iconic paintings, some with familiar names that we know of in the scriptures, while there are also many others with names we do not even know, nor have we ever heard of. But the remarkable thing is, the saints in these paintings are all blacks. They are, and have always been, black people. By these revelations, it is finished. No more doubts on the identity of blacks in the world's biblical history any longer. Would you like to know why? Because these paintings are all Byzantine artwork. Now, let's get you enlightened on why you must take any art called Byzantine very seriously. If you've witnessed the enticing classic ornaments and decorations in Christian churches around the world, those are perhaps the legacy of Byzantine art. Cities like Ravenna, Italy, Kiev, Ukraine, or Novgorod and Moscow, Russia, are the epicenters of artworks that were produced during the Byzantine era. Artworks that had significant influence on Christianity. But what is Byzantine art, and what are its distinctive features? First off, the arts of the Byzantine era correspond to the dates of the empire, which spanned more than a millennium. The Byzantine Empire was the Eastern Roman Empire under Christian rule that thrived in the Middle Ages, from 330 AD until the fall of Rome, when the capital Constantinople, present-day Istanbul, fell to the Ottoman Turks in 1453. This Eastern Roman Empire, unlike the Western half that was ruled from Rome, was a peaceful region that maintained religious, secular, and artistic values. Thousands of painters and craftsmen went to Byzantium to get away from the barbarian Dark Ages in Rome back then. These artists created Byzantine art as the new style of Eastern Christian images and icons, which ultimately flourished into Orthodox Christianity. Because Byzantine art spans over a significant amount of time, it can be divided into three periods: Early Byzantine, 330 to 750, Middle Byzantine, 850 to 1204, and Late Byzantine, 1261 to 1453. Generally, the characteristics of Byzantine art were almost completely in tune with the religious realm, particularly about the transcendence of the Orthodox Church under the Byzantine Empire into artistic forms. Similar to the way of Greek predecessors, Byzantine art has never forgotten its cultural roots and heritage, which originated in Greek culture after being Christianized from the Eastern Roman Empire. This is why artworks from this era continue to resemble their origins. So, just know this. Any old painting you are told is originally Byzantine reflects the exact image of what has been painted. Because, in Byzantine art, there are no alterations. It is an artistic preservation of history, just the way that history is. This isn't the first time, however, that these icons would surface in the public eye. The first time they were displayed by the Russian Federation was no less than 15 years ago in Moscow.
Icons dating back to the 14th century brought together from private collections across Russia.
It's very beautiful. It gives you goose pimples. It's a remarkable exhibition.
It's an exhibition which feeds the senses. Everything is so grey outside at the moment, and here suddenly it's a feast for the eyes.
And it's a feast that marks 100 years since religious icons started to be recognized as works of art. Before then, they were mainly viewed as religious objects, often left blackened over the centuries by the passage of time and added layers of paint.
When
we learned how to remove the dark layers, we discovered...
And just wait there a minute, viewers. Did you hear that? Let's go at it again for a second, shall we?
When we learned how to remove the dark layers, we discovered...
Did you hear that again now? When we learned how to remove the dark layers, the lady just said. For those of you who might not have heard the first rewind clearly, let's go over this again for the final time.
When we learned how to remove the dark layers, we discovered...
Yes, that's the part. The images were whitewashed, and then the other old paintings were hidden in vaults all over Europe and Russia.
When we learned how to remove the dark layers, we discovered an overwhelming beauty, to such an extent that it shocked André Matisse, who was in Moscow at the time. He said, "It's here that artists should come to learn to paint, not to Italy."
But today, only a small number of these masterpieces remain. Most were destroyed during the Soviet era.
These icons are the survivors. If museums hadn't saved them, they wouldn't exist today. There are 50,000 icons in Russian museums. Before, there were millions.
As we can well hear, there used to be millions of these icons back in the days. But today, only a small number of these masterpieces remain, as most were destroyed during the Soviet era. The icons you see here are the survivors of what's left, and they are no more than 50,000 icons. If museums hadn't saved them, they wouldn't exist today.
But now the future of this part of Russian heritage is up for debate. Are the icons best held by museums, or should they be returned to the country's churches?
The second time some of these icons were displayed would be 13 years ago, in Rome, where an exhibition of 40 Russian icons, ancient pieces of art, ranging from the 15th to the 20th century, which were once hidden after the October Revolution of 1917, left the Federation for the first time. These sacred pieces have been preserved from the anti-religious destruction at the time.
The Castel San Angelo in Rome is currently hosting an exhibition of 40 Russian icons that have left their country for the first time. They are pieces of art that were hidden after the October Revolution of 1917 in order to protect them from anti-religious destruction.
It's the first time that a large number of Russian icons have come here to Italy. In addition, here are a dozen examples that have never before been moved. They appear for the first time in our catalog.
Icons are usually painted on wood and meant to represent saints or sacred elements. The Orthodox tradition considers them as if they were the gospel, inspirations of God through the hand of the artist. Their deep symbolism is reflected from the meaning of icon as a representation or vision from another world. The wood evokes the Holy Cross through its gold background, divine light, and the cloth attached to the wood evokes the cloth that covered the body of Jesus Christ.
è un'importanza notevole e fondamentale.
Without a doubt, they have a great importance and a fundamental recognition in Russia because the icons represent for Russia what the pyramids represent for Egypt or the temples to the Greeks.
The exhibition shows icons ranging from the 15th century until the early 20th century. It's a rare opportunity to see the religious soul of Russia through its ancient icons.
Only these icons were not as much as the vast varieties, which were found in the century-old secret vault that was opened to the world over a year ago by the President of the Russian Federation, while the Ukraine and Russia war dragged on.
As the Ukraine-Russia war drags on, Russian President Vladimir Putin has decided to move one of Russia's holiest icons from a museum to a Moscow cathedral. This arises a debate around Putin's growing reliance on the church.
Emphasizing on the importance of the holy icon, Putin ordered Andrei Rublev's Trinity be transferred to the Russian Orthodox Church from Moscow's Tretyakov Gallery for a year. The relocation of Russia's most well-known icon highlights how closely the war has intertwined politics and religion. Trinity is a 15th century artwork which is all set to take its place in the Cathedral of Christ the Savior. The icon depicts the Oak of Mamre, where the three angels visited Abraham in the book of Genesis.
This act by Vladimir Putin caused quite a big stir at the time of the event, as it had happened in the heat of the Russia-Ukraine war. The researchers of the Russian Orthodox Church had argued at the time that the revelation of these black icons was a political move by the President of the Russian Federation.
The researchers of the Russian Orthodox Church are arguing that this transfer of icons is a political move on behalf of Putin. He wants to keep the church on his side in this war by showing his respect to the religious institution. The West claims that Putin is framing the war as a battle for the survival of Russia, to which the researchers further demand that he needs to prove that the war is not his personal military activity, but that there is a higher metaphysical mission in Russia that he is trying to fulfill. In the past, several Russian propagandists have used Christian symbolism about fighting the devil. They have even used antichrist symbols to rally support for a war that has gone on much longer than the expectations. The West says that it just wants to help Ukraine defeat Russia on the battlefield.
Despite all said and done, the solemn truth remains that the question of whether the act of revealing these black icons was some political move or not for President Putin doesn't matter, or compare to the nobility, humanity, and honesty of the act behind the unveiling in essence. There is the undeniable fulfilling elation one always gets to feel at the news of such long hidden truth, unearthed, at long last. The images of Jesus and other historical figures in Russia's black icons challenge the commonly known perception of antiquity and reveal the extent of black people's presence and influence throughout history. Going forward, the unveiling of these old icons didn't stop at the opening of the vault only. Paintings from the 1500s and 1600s depicting black icons, including Jesus and the Mother, Mary, the prophets, and even Abraham, in a highly sought-after book that explores the history of black people in Russia, Italy, and other parts of Europe also surfaced. The book contains interesting depictions of black people in biblical scenes, which is knowledge that is not taught in the American educational system. Let's have a look.
This is Russian Icons by Father Vladimir Ivanov. I hope I didn't butcher that name, but this is a book that is highly coveted by different circles. Because it has the black icons, it has the history of black people in places like Russia, in Italy, in places all over Europe. This book can range from $1,300 to $3,000, so it's not an easy book to get. I actually borrowed this book from a friend, This book has a lot of interesting depictions in it. A lot of them pertaining to the Bible. Like right here, this is the Transfiguration of Christ. And you see it's black people in caves, I believe, what it looks like. It's black people in the whole picture, but this is knowledge that escapes black people here in America. It's definitely something that we would never see or never hear about in the educational system. Now, I'm pretty sure there's people that are Black history college students majoring in Black history or world history, and they never seen nothing like this before. At least not from the standpoint of Europe, you know.
These are the very authentic IDs of the paintings of the very people in the story of the good book, the Bible, including the most popular of the biblical characters today in this world of mankind, Jesus. And as for the name Jesus, do you know that the said name happens to be only a transliteration of his original name, Yeshua? Which even makes one never stop to wonder what the changing of people's names, blacks to be precise, actually means to the white racist. However, let's not veer from the course of the subject in hand. The truth of the matter is, it is no longer news that virtually the entire character in the good book have all been confirmed black.
This is the crucifixion of Christ, and in it we see angels, black angels. The people surrounding him are black. It's very interesting because the images that we see are contrary to what we have known our whole lives, or what we have been taught our whole lives. You know? Like I'll say it again, like these type of images of antiquity escape black people here in America, and I can say all people, for in general, just people in general don't know. I'm pretty sure there's plenty of Caucasian people and people of all nationalities that don't know the extent that black people covered the earth. And in many cases, like here, like what you see, we're in rulership positions. Like this looks like a king flanked on each side by his different priests. His wife looks like, and different high priests. I don't know what king it is.
It is, of course, some solid fact that most people do not know until date the extent to which black people lived in the past, and even ruled in their time. This is due to the whitewashing stereotypes which had begun taking place since the time of the Renaissance.
This is the image of John the Baptist. This is an image of Elijah. And around him is scenes from his life. Kind of like a movie, which is a pretty neat way to do a painting. This is another saint. I don't know who it is. There you have another saint. As the book, as you get closer to the end, the icons start to lighten up.
You can well see that the images begin to lighten afterwards at the ending. This clearly depicts the gradual change caused by the whitewashing evil of falsehood that followed afterwards and altered things that were. The unveiling of these icons is a powerful testament to the enduring strength of truth. The authenticity of these paintings compels us to re-evaluate our understanding of the past, particularly regarding the presence and representation of black figures. For centuries, these figures may have been shrouded in obscurity, but their rediscovery sheds light on previously untold stories, standing as a challenge to long-held assumptions, prompting us to rewrite history with a more inclusive lens. Many Russian icons were destroyed or sold abroad by agents of the Soviet government. Some were hidden to avoid destruction or were smuggled out of the country. Since the fall of communism, a number of icon painting studios have again reopened and are painting in a variety of styles for the local and international market. Many older hidden icons have also been retrieved from hiding or brought back from overseas. In closing, These discoveries shatter the myth of a white biblical narrative, confirming the diversity of ancient civilizations. As we unearth the hidden treasures of Russia's secret vault, we are reminded that history is not always what it seems. The revelation of black biblical icons challenges our assumptions and shakes the foundations of traditional narratives. We are forced to confront the reality that our understanding of the Bible and its characters has been filtered through a lens of Eurocentrism. But today, we reclaim black heritage. We rediscover the rich cultural tapestry of the ancient world, where Africa and Asia played pivotal roles in shaping our shared human story. The black biblical icons in Russia's secret vault are more than just artifacts. They are keys to unlocking a more inclusive and authentic understanding of our faith. They remind us that the message of love, redemption, and salvation knows no racial or ethnic bounds. As we gaze upon the images of Yeshua, Moses, and other biblical figures, we see reflections of ourselves, diverse and other, vibrant and beautiful. We are thus reminded that our stories, our cultures, and our identities matter. This brings us to the end of yet another interesting video segment.
All right, all praises once again to the Most High Power, Yahuwah Bahashem, Yahushua HaMashiach. So here we are presented with these icons, once again, these historical depictions of biblical, I hate to use the word characters, but these biblical
figures.
Figures, there we go. That's a better word. I keep kind of told everybody. These biblical figures depicted in their actual, at that time. And they are so-called black people. And surprise, so are we. And guess what? We thought that's all we were. We didn't think that we was the people. We didn't think that there was any correlation between them and us. But what we found out from reading the text, from the Most High opening our eyes and dropping those scales off our eyes, is that we are these people. We are descended from these people. And that the Most High has an expectation of us to follow him with all of our heart, with all of our mind, and all of our spirit, our soul. So we've changed from being people in the world, from being people in the world to being followers of the book, followers of the ways of the text, to be prepared for the coming of the Messiah and salvation for our people scattered throughout this land. So none of this is news to us, but it is important that we understand not only are these icons historically accurate, but they are meant for us at this time, because these are the last days, and this is the time that the Most High have chosen to pour out his Ruach on all of us. So I'm gonna rest there. Go ahead, Ak.
Khan, I want to say we had spoke about this maybe back when he had released these figures before. I don't know if we had done a video about it, but I remember us talking about it, and it's very revealing. And sadly, many of our people will still see these images and say that it doesn't matter, and that's part of the damage that the oppressor has done to our people. We have been undone, and really it's our own fault, because our ancestors made a covenant with the Most High Power, and we knew what was going to befall us if we didn't take heed, and this is all a byproduct. But what we're seeing here, I would say that it fits some of Dan Ayel's prophecy in Dan Ayel chapter 12 verse 4, and it reads, "But you, O Dan Ayel, shut up the words and seal the book, even to the time of the end. Many shall run to and fro, and knowledge shall be increased." So, these things that were hidden before are coming to light, and nobody's going to be able to say, oh, well, we didn't know. All of this knowledge is becoming firsthand knowledge, you know. So all praises to the Most High.
Hallelujah. All praises, yes, indeed. Yeah, it's known. And, you know, when they was talking about it at the very beginning, when they were saying who all was privy to all of this information, it really made me think, you know, that's no wonder we hate it all over the world, because they know that, you know, so-called black people and these people are similar people, similar looking people. So what does that mean for them? What does that mean for, you know what I'm saying, for everybody? So makes you wonder about all of that. But we're going to continue to the next video. We have, once again, another one from our good brothers over at Black Journals. This one is Expose Who Are These White Israelis? So if we know that the biblical icons are black people, and those black people are likely, or not likely, but definitely us, who are these white Israelis? Who are these Israeli people who are Caucasian in look and feature? Let's find out. All praises. All right, here we go.
Israel went into Egypt with 70 people, and after approximately 750 years came out with over 2 million people, and hordes of other slaves who came out and became also part of the emerging new nation of Israel. So Israel, the biblical Israel, was a black nation, an African nation that came out of Africa and kept constant ties with Africa. And so we have to remember then that Jesus was a black Messiah, not a white Messiah, and he comes out of the whole historical background of Africa, of African traditions, of African history, of African culture, the concept of communalism, the concept of the chosen people, the concept of kingdom of God on earth. All these things were out of African tradition, not out of the white man's tradition. And Jesus was essentially a revolutionary Messiah who was trying to lead a black people in a revolt, in a struggle and conflict with a white Gentile oppressor. So the whole church has to be viewed from the point of view of the white oppressor. The white oppressor has one kind of Christianity, has one kind of church. The black church has to become independent and go back to the historic African roots of Christianity.
The biblical Abraham was a man of color, a black man. So why aren't the modern day Israelites people of color? Why aren't they black-skinned? Why shouldn't they be? In the book, The Original Black Jews by Windsor, Rudolph R., 1935, the author discusses the origins of the Hamites and Shemites, or Semites. He states that the original Israelites were of the black race, and that the biblical Abraham, or Abram, was a black Shemite, which happens to be a descendant of Shem. Abraham was the father of both the Hebrew Israelite and Arab nations. The Hebrew Israelites would mean Jacob, twin brother to Esau, who later would become Israel, whose children would be Israelites. On the other hand, the Arab nations would mean Ishmael, Abraham's first child and son whom he had with the Egyptian Hagi, who happened to be the slave maid of Abraham's wife, Sarah. The Creator's words had come to pass, according to the biblical scriptures, that the both would turn out to be great nations. The black Shemites intermarried with black Hamite Egyptian women, giving rise to the Arab nation. The author also states that Arabia was originally inhabited by the Ethiopians, who are also known as the Cushites, prior to the progenitors of the Arabs. Many of today's Arabs are not black due to the introduction of white slavery. The story of King Solomon of Jerusalem and the Queen of Sheba, known as Makeda by the Ethiopians, points to the origins of the present black Jews of Ethiopia, known as the Falashas. The Falashas claim descent from the child of King Solomon and the Queen of Sheba, Menelik first. The queen had returned to Sheba, which was part of the Ethiopian Empire, with Menelik first. Later on, Menelik was sent to his father in Jerusalem to be educated, where he accepted the name David. The Jews who returned to Ethiopia with Menelik are claimed to be the ancestors of the Falashas. The Ethiopian emperor, Haile Selassie, was also believed to be a descendant of Solomon and the Queen of Sheba. The book also describes the origins of Christianity and Islam, which are the offspring of Judaism. Here, the author refers to Christianity and Islam as the two daughters of Judaism. According to the Jewish Encyclopedia, the terms Hebrews and Israelites usually describe the same people. stating that they were called Hebrews before the conquest of the land of Canaan and Israelites afterwards. The Hebrews were an ancient Semitic-speaking people. Historians mostly consider the Hebrews as synonymous with the Israelites, with the term Hebrew denoting an Israelite from the nomadic era that preceded the establishment of the United Kingdom of Israel. According to the Deuteronomistic history in the Hebrew Bible, a united monarchy or United Kingdom of Israel existed under the reigns of Saul, Eshbaal, David, and Solomon, encompassing the territories of both the later kingdoms of Judah and Israel. Whether the united monarchy existed, and if so, to what extent, is a matter of ongoing academic debate. During the 1980s, some biblical scholars had begun to argue that the archaeological evidence for an extensive kingdom before the late 8th century BCE is too weak, and that the methodology used to obtain the evidence is flawed. Scholars had remained divided among those who support the historicity of the biblical narrative, those who doubt or dismiss it, and those who support the kingdom's theoretical existence while maintaining that the biblical narrative is exaggerated. Proponents of the kingdom's existence traditionally dated to between c. 1047 BCE and c. 930 BCE. However, in some instances, the designation Hebrews may also be used historically in a wider sense, referring to the Phoenicians or other ancient civilizations, such as the Shasu, on the eve of the late Bronze Age collapse. It appears 34 times within 32 verses of the Hebrew Bible. According to the basic interpretation, the ancestral lineage of the 12 tribes of Israel suggests that they were originally black, tracing their roots back to African ancestors. The tribes are explicitly named in the Bible, which traces their roots back to the ancient Jewish patriarchs. Having seen that the ancient Israelites had African origins, I bet the question running through your mind will be, what then is the historical background of the modern-day white Jewish population? And how did they come to be identified as Israelites? The term white Israelis typically refers to Israeli citizens who are of European or Caucasian descent, particularly those from Ashkenazi Jewish backgrounds. Ashkenazi Jews are descendants of Jewish communities that originated in Central and Eastern Europe, and many of them migrated to Israel during the 20th century. However, it's important to note that the concept of whiteness is complex and can be problematic, as it often carries connotations of privilege, power, and racial hierarchy. In Israel, the category of white Israelis can be seen as a social and political construct, as it encompasses a diverse range of communities and ethnicities. Some of the groups that might be included in the category of white Israelis are: 1. Ashkenazi Jews of European descent. In the 8th century, a Turkic people called the Khazars ruled a vast empire in Eastern Europe, stretching from modern-day Ukraine to Kazakhstan. The Khazars were a powerful and influential nation, strategically located between Europe and Asia, controlling key trade routes, including the Silk Road. Around 740 CE, the Khazar king Bulan converted to Judaism, and many of his people followed suit. This conversion was likely influenced by Jewish merchants and traders who traveled along the Silk Road, introducing Judaism to the Khazar elite. The Khazars established a Jewish kingdom with its capital in Atil, modern-day Astrakhan, Russia. The kingdom was a hub of intellectual and spiritual activity, attracting Jewish scholars and teachers from across the ancient world. The Khazar Jews developed their own distinct traditions, blending Jewish practices with Turkic and Slavic customs. By the 10th century, the Khazar kingdom declined, weakened by internal conflicts and external pressures from neighboring powers. Many Khazar Jews migrated to Eastern Europe, particularly to Poland, Lithuania, and Ukraine, where they merged with existing Jewish communities. This migration marked the beginning of Ashkenazi Jewry, as Khazar Jews integrated with local Jewish populations, adopting customs and practices from their new environments. During the Middle Ages, some European groups like the Normans and Saxons converted to Judaism, further increasing the Ashkenazi Jewish population. These conversions often occurred in response to economic opportunities or social mobility. Converts brought their own cultural practices and languages, enriching the Ashkenazi Jewish heritage. Over time, the Ashkenazi Jews intermarried with local European populations, adopting customs, languages, and cultural practices. This assimilation contributed to the development of distinct Ashkenazi Jewish traditions, such as Yiddish language and literature. Ashkenazi Jews also developed unique religious practices like the use of Hebrew and Aramaic in liturgy. Hebrew was primarily used as a literary and sacred language until its 20th century revival as a common language in Israel. Ashkenazim adapted their traditions to Europe and underwent a transformation in their interpretation of Judaism. In the late 18th and 19th centuries, Jews who remained in or returned to historical German lands experienced a cultural reorientation. Under the influence of the Haskalah and the struggle for emancipation, as well as the intellectual and cultural ferment in urban centers, some gradually abandoned Yiddish in favor of German and developed new forms of Jewish religious life and cultural identity. Throughout the centuries, Ashkenazim made significant contributions to Europe's philosophy, scholarship, literature, art, music, and science. As a proportion of the world Jewish population, Ashkenazim were estimated to be 3% in the 11th century, rising to 92% in 1930 near the population's peak. The Ashkenazi population was significantly diminished by the Holocaust carried out by Nazi Germany during World War II, which killed some 6 million Jews, affecting almost every European Jewish family. In 1933, prior to World War II, the estimated worldwide Jewish population was 15.3 million. Israeli demographer and statistician Sergio D. Pergola implied that Ashkenazim comprised 65 to 70% of Jews worldwide in 2000, while other estimates suggest more than 75%. As of 2013, the population was estimated to be between 10 million and 11.2 million. Recent genetic studies reveal that Ashkenazi Jews have a complex ancestry, with origins in the Middle East, about 30 to 40%, Europe, about 40 to 50%, and North Africa and the Caucasus, about 10 to 20%. This genetic diversity reflects the Khazars and Ashkenazi Jews' history of migration, intermarriage, and assimilation. Today, Ashkenazi Jews comprise approximately 80% of the global Jewish population, with communities in Europe, North America, Israel, and beyond. Their rich cultural heritage, shaped by centuries of migration and assimilation, continues to influence Jewish identity and traditions worldwide. 2. Sephardi Jews of Spanish and Portuguese descent. In the late 19th and early 20th centuries, Sephardi Jews from Spain and Portugal began migrating to Palestine, then under Ottoman rule. They were drawn by the promise of religious freedom and the chance to escape persecution. As Zionist ideology gained traction, more Sephardi Jews arrived, eager to build a new life in the Jewish homeland. However, they faced discrimination from Ashkenazi Jewish immigrants who saw them as Arab Jews or Oriental Jews. Despite this, the Sephardi Jews thrived in Palestine, establishing communities and cultural institutions. But with the establishment of Israel in 1948, their identity began to shift. Israeli policy and education emphasized the importance of European heritage, and Sephardi Jews began to adopt Ashkenazi customs and language. They were encouraged to abandon their Ladino language and Middle Eastern traditions, which were seen as backward and Arab. As Sephardi Jews assimilated into Israeli society, they started to identify as white and European, distancing themselves from their Middle Eastern and North African roots. This process was reinforced by Israel's Eurocentric culture and the desire to westernize the country. Over time, Sephardi Jews became white Israelis, an identity that obscured their complex history and cultural heritage. Today, some Sephardi Jews in Israel continue to grapple with their identity, seeking to reclaim their Sephardic roots and challenge the dominant Ashkenazi narrative. 3. The Mizrahi Jews of Middle Eastern and North African descent. When Israel was founded in 1948, more than 700,000 Palestinians were expelled or forced to flee their homes in what is now the Jewish state. But from the early days of the state, there was a group that didn't buy the justification, the Jews with roots in the Arab and Muslim world. Called Mizrahim in Israel, these Jews today make up the largest ethnic group in the country. They mostly immigrated to Israel after 1948, and for much of the country's history, they have been victims of the same kind of anti-Arab ideology that is wielded against the Palestinians. For centuries, Mizrahi Jews had enjoyed high status in their countries of origin in the Middle East and North Africa, which ranged from Iraq to Egypt to Morocco. But when they landed in Israel, they found that the new state was ruled by European Jews called Ashkenazim, who overwhelmingly viewed them as primitive and culturally backward. As Mizrahi Jews assimilated into Israeli society, they faced intense pressure to abandon their Middle Eastern and North African cultures. This was perpetuated by the Ashkenazi-dominated government, education system, and media, which promoted a Eurocentric worldview. Mizrahi Jews were encouraged to adopt Ashkenazi customs, language, and practices, and suppress their traditional ways. The Israeli government and media often portrayed Mizrahi Jews as backward and uncivilized, and many were forced to abandon their cultural traditions and language in order to become Israeli. Mizrahi Jews were also subject to whitening policies aimed at erasing their non-European features. This included forced assimilation, cultural suppression, and even physical transformation. For example, they were offered nose jobs to fix non-European facial features. Some Mizrahi Jews were even forced to change their names to sound more Israeli in order to gain acceptance and access to resources and opportunities. Through this process, Mizrahi Jews began to identify themselves as white Israelis, a classification that obscured their Middle Eastern and North African heritage. This shift was not a natural evolution, but a result of systemic discrimination and cultural erasure. Mizrahi intellectuals at the time were quick to link the discrimination against them to the discrimination against Palestinians. Orientalism, Palestinian scholar Edward Said's term for a European tendency to portray the East as exotic, irrational, and uncivilized, was being used to cast both groups as inferior and deny them equal rights. Their struggle was one and the same, and so starting in the 1950s, Mizrahim and Palestinians formed a solidarity movement, producing everything from joint magazines to joint street protests. This movement offered a counterpoint to the villa in the jungle view of Israel, an alternative vision for how Jews and Palestinians can live together on the land. It also offers a more nuanced way to think about contemporary debates on the meaning of indigeneity, nationhood, and colonialism in Israel-Palestine. 4. Immigrants from the former Soviet Union and other European countries. In the 1990s and 2000s, a significant wave of immigrants arrived in Israel from the former Soviet Union and other European countries, including Russia, Ukraine, Belarus, and others. This migration was driven by various factors, such as political instability, economic hardship, and the dissolution of the Soviet Union. Many of these immigrants were Jewish or had Jewish ancestry, and were eligible for Israeli citizenship under the law of return. They were attracted to Israel's promise of safety, economic opportunity, and a chance to reconnect with their Jewish heritage. Some were also motivated by a desire to escape anti-Semitism and discrimination in their home countries. As a result, Israel experienced a significant influx of new citizens, who would eventually become an integral part of Israeli society. Upon arrival, they were initially considered others within Israeli society. However, as they assimilated, they began to be perceived as white Israelis. This shift was facilitated by their European background, which aligned with the dominant Ashkenazi culture. As they settled in Israel, they adopted Hebrew, learned about Jewish customs, and integrated into society. Many abandoned their unique cultural identities and embraced Ashkenazi norms, which were seen as the standard for Israeliness. Over time, they became an integral part of Israeli society, contributing to its diversity and complexity. Today, many immigrants from European countries are identified as white Israelis, often unaware of the historical power dynamics that shape their identity. The small country of Israel was established as a refuge for the oppressed white European Jews, who in turn became oppressors of people of color, the Palestinians. Although Israeli society is not racially divided between blacks and whites in the way that American society has long been, still blackness in Israel has shaped the relations between Jews and Arabs, Ashkenazim and Mizrahim, Ethiopians, and immigrant workers from Africa. Despite the salience of blackness in Israel, scholars of Israel and the wider academic field of Israel studies have largely ignored it so far. In this video, I argue that the reason for this scholarly neglect is that in Israel, blackness does not neatly fit into the conventional configurations that exist in countries like the US and the UK. I further stipulate that in its uniqueness, the Israeli case shows that blackness transgresses color lines in new and unexpected ways, offering fresh perspectives on Israeli society and challenging the arbitrary stipulations of blackness as a concept. There are many significant differences, but also some similarities. While Israeli society is not racially divided between blacks and whites in the way that American society has long been, Israelis are certainly not colorblind, and having black skin can also have fatal consequences in Israel. For instance, in June 2019, Solomon Teka, an 18-year-old Israeli Jew of Ethiopian descent, was shot to death by an Israeli policeman. This outburst had sparked widespread demonstrations and rioting at the time. The Solomon Teka incident was not an unprecedented event. In April 2015, video footage of Israeli policemen brutalizing Damas Pakada, a Jewish Ethiopian soldier, moved thousands of Israelis, Ethiopians, and others to the streets. One of the reasons this incident prompted a strong reaction was the fact that Pakada was an on-duty soldier wearing his military uniform. Military service is widely perceived as the ultimate rite of passage into Israeli society and as a stamp of approval for being a loyal Israeli citizen. Watching the footage of the assault on Damas Pakada that was captured by a security camera, many Israelis saw Pakada not only as an individual, but as an example of the successful assimilation of Ethiopians in Israel. Yet the incident revealed that despite this assimilation, Ethiopian Israelis still suffer from police brutality and discrimination even when they are in their official garb. Thus, in their protests, Israeli Ethiopians accused the police and the Israeli establishment more broadly of racism against their community due to their skin color. Such claims by Ethiopian Israelis, and the statistics that support them, have had a strong impact on Israeli public opinion. Notwithstanding the many schisms and tensions characterizing Israeli society, most Israelis still adhere to the idea of eliminating the differences between Jews in the country. Although the term black was used in Israeli discourse even before the establishment of the state and was attributed to various groups, Israelis do not usually perceive themselves or groups in Israeli society in racial terms. Therefore, the Pakada incident, revealing this hidden racial aspect, gained widespread attention in Israel well beyond the Ethiopian community. This was not the first time, however, that blackness was associated with official racism and discrimination in Israel. In 1971, second-generation Mizrahi immigrants living in the poor neighborhood of Musrara in Jerusalem formed the Israeli Black Panther movement. By identifying themselves as blacks, these Mizrahi youngsters alluded to the gap between the official Zionist narrative of ingathering the Jewish exiles and the reality in which some Jews remained outsiders in their home country. For the Israeli Black Panthers, blackness would serve mainly as a metaphor, whereas for Ethiopian Israelis, blackness is the material fact of their skin color, which makes them a target for institutional and systemic discrimination. On and on, the cases of discrimination by white Israelis on the black Israelis still continues. It is clearly obvious that behind the label, white Israeli, lies a complex tapestry of experiences shaped by history, culture, and circumstance. Their identities are multifaceted, influenced by a rich heritage of European Jewish traditions, the trauma of the Holocaust, and the resilience of immigrants seeking refuge. This complex identity is further nuanced by the blending of traditional and modern values and the intricate interplay between ethnicity, religion, and nationality. In closing, the question, who are these white Israelis, echoes through the corridors of history, revealing a complex tapestry of identity, power, and displacement. We have unraveled the threads of European colonization, Zionist ideology, and the dispossession of Palestine. Today, we stand at a crossroads where the myth of a homogeneous white Israel crumbles beneath the weight of truth. We recognize the diverse narratives, Ashkenazi, Mizrahi, Sephardi, and Palestinian, intertwined yet conflicted. Let us shatter the illusions of supremacy and reclaim our shared humanity. Let us confront the systems of oppression that have ravaged the Middle East and beyond. To the Palestinian people, we acknowledge your resilience, your struggle, and your right to self-determination. Your freedom is our freedom. To the Israeli people, we urge you to confront the mirror of history and question the narrative of exclusivity. Together, we can forge a new path, built on justice, equality, and coexistence. A path where 1, refugees return home, 2, walls crumble, and 3, voices rise. We are the generation that will redefine what it means to be Israeli, Palestinian, and human. We will write a new chapter, one of reconciliation, solidarity, and peace. The time for change is now. That brings us to the end.
What? What in the world? Praises to the Abba. We was doing good until we got to the end, man. That end was wow. Yeah. So, okay. This is the social construct of the so-called Black people in America, and I'm gonna be frank. We don't want peace. We don't want reconciliation. We don't want to become one with you. We don't want to be friends with you. We don't want to march into the future with you. You're going into captivity, and we're gonna be put back in our place. This is not meant for us to be friends. You stole our identity. You imposing yourself to be us, and we pissed off about it. Now, sadly, my good brothers over at Black Journals, they have a different philosophy, a different ideology, but that's not the sentiment that's echoed through the scriptures. The scriptures predict war, and I say predict. It's truly prophesy war, and when war comes, you lose. So that's it. You lose, and we go back to being what the Most High have created us to be, the top nation in the world. And everybody who got any problem with us, who won't deal with the way that we do things, they're going to be destroyed. And the Most High is going to give us the ability to do everything we need to do to reign and rule supreme in all the earth. The earth was made for our sake, not yours. So you're just a byproduct. So you either going to get down or you're going to lay down. Simple and put. You can call it whatever you want to call it. I don't care. I'm standing on the scriptures, my cultural backing. And I believe in the Most High power and the Messiah that he will send. And you want to challenge them, feel free. But that's where my understanding comes from. So I'm going to rest there. Go ahead, Doc.
Con, I kind of feel like they went short or went kind of light on it, and like you said, it was good up until the end. But when they spoke about the Sephardic Yahudim, there's plenty of information out there that will tell you that what the description of those Sephardic Yahudim look like. Right. And it's recorded. The Yahudim who came from Spain and Portugal were always noted to have black skin, smuggy, or what was it, swarty skin. The brothers did a really good job talking about, where these people come from. Like you said, soon, and we can already see the Abba's hand moving for restoration of his people, and things will be set right. We will no longer have the stony hearts. We will do his judgments. Well, we will know his judgments and keep them. And the world, if they want to survive, they will take heed to what the Abba has proclaimed and what our people are doing.
Exactly. And the scripture says explicitly that you're going to bring the riches of the Gentiles to Israel, Yasha'al. God. That's what it's going to be. And if you don't come up to keep the feast of Sukkot, guess what? You won't receive any rain. And if you don't receive any rain, that means you get no crops. That means you cannot live. You will die.
Right.
And
So it's a little bit more complex than some president or chancellor imposing tariffs on you, or something like that. A little bit more serious.
A lot more serious, because without rain, that means no crops. No crops means no food. No food means no eating. No eating means you die. It's just a matter of time before you die. Not only you get no food, you also won't have any water because you won't have any rain. That means Abba is going to dry you out and starve you.
But there'll be some rebels out. There will be some rebels that think that they can still do what they want to do and live wickedly, and they'll try to take other people's stuff. And that's when the rod will come down and shatter in pieces.
In pieces. The Mashiach said, he who overcome will I give power to rule over the nations, and he shall rule them with a rod of iron, and they shall be broken into pieces. That's exactly what you can expect. So, it is what it is. I'm not mad at these brothers. I understand the situations and circumstances that our people have dealt with, and it's been hard. It's been hard for us, but it's going to be harder for you, all of you wicked heathen. You're going to be subject to the Israelites, Yasha'al. And are we going to be as cruel to you as you were to us? No. We won't be raping your wives. We won't be sodomizing your children. We won't be doing all these wicked, evil things that you would do to us, because we have morals, we have standards, and those things are not a part of our makeup. But what we will do is we will get our lick back, and we'll correct our children when they slapping y'all around. We'll tell them don't do them like that. Right? Exactly. So, all praises to the Abba. We're going to continue. We got 2 more videos to run through. This one is the shocking story of the Rosewood Massacre you never knew. So this is more information about Rosewood that apparently we weren't privy to. So let's get to it and get through it. All praises to the Abba.
Descendants of Rosewood are stepping into a piece of history.
From descendants of people who were displaced by the Rosewood Massacre.
An angry racist mob invaded and destroyed the town of Rosewood.
Imagine facing a situation where someone you know is accused of abusing and raping a white woman, only to find out that this was all due to a lover she had on the side. Well, while there is still a lot of speculation about the situation, there's a good chance that this was what caused the violent Rosewood Massacre in 1923, or at least contributed to the outright murder and lynching of Black people.
They came on the first day of January, and they did not stop burning and shooting and hanging and lynching.
This was one of many cases where white supremacy caused the death of Black people. The Rosewood Massacre was quickly forgotten, but when it comes to really understanding our culture, we have to look at the harsh truths about how our previous generations were treated by white people. In this video, you'll discover the truth of the Rosewood Massacre. We'll take a look at how things went from a quiet, peaceful town to riots of white people burning everything in sight down. I'll also tell you more about what's known about the incident and what really happened. In 1847, the settlement of Rosewood was created. It was located close to Cedar Key, and the residents in the town mostly focused on timber. There are many cedar trees in the surrounding area, so they had enough resources to enter this industry. During this time, the settlement opened pencil mills and later also opened a post office. While Rosewood was never actually incorporated as an official town in Florida, it was connected to the Florida Railroad by 1870. Before 1890, the population in Rosewood was made up of both white and Black people. However, by 1890, the people in the settlement decided to close the pencil mills. This happened when they noticed the majority of cedar trees that were being used by these mills had been cut down. It left the local businesses in Rosewood with little resources to actually continue operating. A large number of those who lived in Rosewood decided to move away. This left the population in the settlement consisting of mostly black people. And so, the settlement continued to remain peaceful after it became an area where the majority of residents were black. By the time this happened, slavery had been abolished in the United States. Racism was still a major problem, but these black people had their freedom, at least to some extent, while they resided in Rosewood.
Rosewood is more than a forgotten town. It's the fabric of her family's history.
Things were peaceful for a couple of years, but in 1923, all of this changed, with events transpiring residents. Racism was something that didn't go away when the United States abolished slavery. Years later, it was still common to hear about lynching against black people. Groups of white people would attack a black person. This left these black people wounded and sometimes even dead, as they were defenseless in many cases. It was also the belief that white people were superior to blacks that led to the massacre that happened in Rosewood. The problem with this event is that it wasn't really documented. No arrests were made, and white people made it so that it seemed like it never happened. However, a couple of years later, some people began to speak out. They revealed the shocking truth behind the real reason why the Rosewood Massacre took place. So let's consider what really happened, as told by survivors and their children, as well as according to experts who have done their research to reveal
Hey, shalom, shalom, Mark.
All right, can you hear me out? I'll just restart it. Look like we might be back stable. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, Khan, you're still live.
Okay, Con, yeah. I think we're back. Here, let's go ahead to back to the video here. It looks like it's still, I had paused it, so it looks like it's still good. Let's see here. I know my hair look wild. Let me stop caring. All right, I had the wrong button, of course. All right, let's get back to the video so we can finish this on up here.
All right, Khan.
Like things are back to normal now, as it was haywire for just a moment, but like we're back. So here we go.
White woman named Frances Fanny Taylor. You see, she was staying in Sumner, which was close to the settlement of Rosewood, where mostly black people lived. When the cedar trees in Rosewood were running out a few decades before near Rosewood, many of the white people who stayed there decided to move to Sumner.
On New Year's Day, 1923, a white married woman from a nearby town falsely accused.
So, Frances was staying in Sumner with her husband, James Taylor. She was 22 years old at the time, and her husband was 30 years. He was working at Cummer & Sons as a millwright. Reports have said that James left their home in Sumner very early in the morning. This was a requirement due to the time he had to clock in at work. Sarah Carrier was the laundress for Frances and would often arrive very early. On this particular morning, it's said that Sarah and her granddaughter, Philomena Goins, went into the residence of Frances early. Now, let's first consider what happened this morning. Frances' neighbor reported hearing a scream for help from Frances' residence. She took out her revolver and immediately ran over to their house. When the neighbor, whose name was not disclosed in reports, arrived, she found Frances lying on the floor. It was clear that Frances was attacked, as she had bruises on her face. Frances asked the neighbor to look for her baby. She also said that there was a black man in her house. Frances told her neighbor that the black man came into her house and assaulted her. Her neighbor could find her baby, but there was no one else in the house. Sarah was also absent at this time. Remember that racism was a major problem for black people at the time. Frances came out to say that the black man assaulted her, but confirmed that she was not raped. However, white supremacy quickly took over, causing rumors to start going around. This led many of the white people in Sumner to believe that a black man both robbed and raped Frances. Her words were essentially ignored. White people had this hatred in themselves for black people, thinking that they were superior. So it makes sense that they drew their own conclusions and now accused a black man not only for assaulting Frances, being a white woman, but also of raping her. However, they didn't know who the supposed black man was. There were no witnesses other than Frances, who only mentioned that she was attacked by a black man. There's something important to consider here. When a white woman was attacked during the early 1900s, it would be easy to blame it on a black guy. Racism would take over, and the truth behind these matters would go ignored, as once white people heard that it was a black man, it caused rage. The truth has been revealed, but let's first consider what happened after this.
Her testimony sheds light on the ruthless nature of the attacks. They were shooting guns and setting fire to our houses. We had no choice but to run away, leaving everything behind.
You see, white men were now angry. They were told that one of their people was raped and assaulted by a black man. They wanted to get revenge, and they wanted to become violent. However, they didn't have much to go on in order to identify just who the criminal could have been. This all led to the discovery that a black man had escaped from prison. He was known as Jesse Hunter, and the escape apparently happened just a few days before the attack. Automatically, the white people in Sumner believed that it was Jesse, the escaped convict, that decided to enter Frances' home to assault and rape her. The Levy County Sheriff decided to start a search for Jesse Hunter, as he quickly became the primary subject of the investigation. There were white men who joined the search from multiple locations. Apart from white men in Sumner, many also came from Otter Creek, Bronson, and Chiefland. The idea was to create a larger group of men who could then search for the black man who escaped from prison. When the search began, there were an estimated 400 white men who gathered in Sumner in order to assist with the investigation. It was a posse that Robert Elias Walker, who was serving as the Levy County Sheriff at the time, created. Some of these men were deputized, but this didn't account for all of them. There was a convict camp close to the area where the group gathered. The sheriff decided to ask for search dogs to be provided to them in order to assist with the search. And this is where things got out of control. One of these dogs went to a house that belonged to Sarah's nephew's home. Remember that Sarah was the laundress for Francis when all of this happened. Aaron, who was Sarah's nephew, was taken outside of his home by a group that consisted of up to 150 white men.
And they came into this town, Rosewood, and they slaughtered black women, men, and kids just because of a lie.
They immediately started to accuse Aaron of the assault against Francis, even though they didn't even make an effort to get his name or consider whether or not he was actually the one who escaped from prison. Without giving Aaron a chance to say anything, they tied his body to a car. They then used the car to drag Aaron all the way to Sumner. In order to avoid further outrage, the sheriff decided to put Aaron into protective custody. He knew if he didn't do this, the white men, angry at the possibility that Aaron could be the escaped convict and the one to assault their kind, could possibly take it in their own hands to deliver justice. At this point, the group of white men who gathered to do a search for Jesse Hunter turned into a mob. There's really no other way to describe what was going on. And as the sheriff saw things quickly spiraling out of control, he told black employees in the area to remain at the mill where they were working. He advised that this was important, as it would help to ensure their safety during this time. So, at this point, Aaron was in protective custody. The white mob then turned to the nearby turpentine still and decided to grab Sam Carter. He was a well-known blacksmith who worked at the still. Many would agree that they looked for the first black person they could see and seized him. Sam was then tortured by the white mob. He was told that he had to admit he was hiding Jesse Hunter, who was able to previously escape from the chain gang prison. In the end, Sam decided to give in and tell them he would take them to where he led Jesse after he escaped from prison. He then took these white men into the woods, where he said he had taken Jesse. However, there were no traces of Jesse. The dogs that they had with them were also unable to pick up any scent. Feeling betrayed and lied to, one of the white men who were part of this mob shot Sam. The shot was in his face and fatal, leaving Sam dead. This wasn't enough for this angry mob of white people. They tortured Sam and then shot him in the face. The white mob decided to take things one step further and hung his body on a tree. According to the white people who were part of the mob, this was a warning sign to other black people who were living or working in that area. They went so far as to rip pieces of his clothes off and took them for themselves as souvenirs. The mob then continued with their search for the fugitive that they were looking for.
Yeah, they probably did not rip pieces of his clothes off. They probably ripped pieces of his body off, because that's what they were known for doing. So, yeah, they tend to take it a little bit easy with the narrative on these videos, and I want y'all to be real. They don't rip clothes. If they rip clothes, that's not noteworthy. They rip body parts, and that's what they've known for. And this being a drunken mob, he didn't mention the fact that they was drinking. They was drinking. That was what was depicted in the movie. They was drinking and acting completely crazy, and doing deplorable, despicable acts. And it was all about the jealousy that they had. They didn't care nothing about that woman or what she was doing. Everybody knew what she was doing. Everybody knew she had some man coming to see her during the day, including her husband. So Yeah. Let's continue. You got anything on that?
A lot.
Okay, let's continue.
At this point, they had a scent that the dogs could follow. They thought the scent they had was of Jesse Hunter, the escaped prisoner. However, they were wrong. So all this time, they were actually after someone else. Now, something that was revealed is how they decided that Sam Carter was the one who hid the fugitive. We'll go into details about what really happened later, but at this point, what you need to know is that the real fugitive actually went to the home of Sam Carter after running away. This happened after the real fugitive left the home of Frances, the white woman who was assaulted and, as believed by many of the white people in Sumner, raped. Sam and Aaron, who was Sarah's cousin as we already explained, helped the fugitive get into a wagon. They were able to get the fugitive to a river that was close to Rosewood. This means that Sam had the scent of the real fugitive on him. When he came back home, the mob was already there. They had dogs that indicated Sam had the fugitive's scent. Since people knew Sam, they already understood the fact that he was not Jesse Hunter, who escaped from the gang chain prison. So this obviously meant Sam was the one who was hiding the escaped prisoner. After the horrific incident with Sam, the mob ran into Sylvester Carrier. He was the son of Sarah, the laundress for Frances. They told him that he should get out of the town. This warning made it clear that they were planning something. However, Sylvester didn't listen to the white people in this mob, but rather headed back to Rosewood, where he advised people to gather and stand up in defense of what might be coming their way.
Destroyed by evil white people. So
by the 4th of January, the white mob continued to grow, and these people then decided that they would head over to Rosewood. During their visit to Rosewood, they went to the house where Sarah was staying. Apart from Sarah, she had her grandchildren over. Experts believe that her grandchildren were visiting Sarah as it was just after Christmas. It's estimated that as many as 25 people were in Sarah's home when the mob arrived. Many of them were children. Sarah got them to hide underneath beds and mattresses, fearing for their lives at this point. Fortunately, Sylvester was there when the mob arrived, so he was able to provide a line of defense. Some suggest that Sylvester was not alone in defending Sarah and those who were in dire need of refuge in her home. There are many who believe 2 other black men were by Sylvester's side. It is known that Sylvester was armed in order to defend his people. Sarah was the first to be shot dead during this act of race crime. The white men in the mob shot Sarah in her head. Many believe that the act that happened on January 4th was fueled by something that Sylvester had said. You see, there are some reports that suggest he said something to the New York Times. When white people saw this in the newspaper, they were even more angry. It is known that Sylvester stood his ground and defended the home of Sarah, even after they shot her in the head. It has been reported that Polly Wilkerson was the one to kick down the door in Sarah's house, after which Sylvester decided to open fire on this white man. By the next morning, the standoff continued. The white mob did a lot of damage to Sarah's house. Both Sarah and Sylvester's bodies were found, and they were declared dead by the morning of January 5th. There were also several black people who sought refuge in the home and got injured during the standoff.
After Sarah Carrier hid some 25 frightened black children in her house, she and her son were killed by white racers.
News quickly started to spread about what happened in Rosewood. Sylvester was able to defend the home, but was unfortunately shot dead sometime during the night. There were 2 white men from the mob that were also found dead the next morning. This included Henry Andrews, as well as Polly Wilkerson, the guy who kicked down the door.
Now, ironically, in the movie, they depicted Sylvester as making it all the way through.
That was Ben Raines, wasn't it?
No, it was the other brother. What's the brother name?
Mario Van Peebles.
No. In Rosewood, he was depicted by he was played by
Blair Underwood.
No. You guessing that? the brother who played talk to me and talk to me. And Blood Diamond. I can't remember his name. He was in a bunch of movies. He was in Rush Hour, too.
Don Cheadle.
Don Cheadle, that's it. Don Cheadle, yes. Yeah, he played Sylvester in Rosewood. And they depicted him as making it all the way to the end. So he never got killed. That's ironic because in the movie his mother went out and talked to the mob and they shot her and she fell and hit the ground. He opened the door and started shooting, and then he pulled her body in the house. And the sheriff, he made them carry her, put her in a coffin and carry her out. And he had hid in the coffin with his mother, and that's how he was able to escape the house. But apparently that was just fiction, because what he's saying here is that he made it through. He was shot dead. So that was ironic, because that's a stark contrast with the movie. I've seen that movie times, at least.
Yeah, it used to be one of my favorites as well, Art.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't watch it because it was, I watched it because it was, he used to, for the content, the historical content of it, not necessarily because it was a good movie.
Right.
I love Ben Rain's character, but he's not even mentioned in Ben Rain's character. I forget his name in that movie, though. What was his name in that movie?
Yeah, I can't think of it either. I thought that was who Sylvester. I mean, it's been a while since I've seen it,
Yeah, Sylvester was her son. And that was played by Don Cheadle. You remember they had the mother from Florence from Good Times. She played that part.
Okay, come.
Yeah. And then Don Cheadle was her son. And they were jealous of them because they had made a good living in Rosewood. And even though they were, working kind of bottom, they were working bottom jobs, they were able to make a decent living. And I remember one of the lines in the movie, one of the white dudes said, that N-word has a piano in his house. I don't have a piano in my house. Talking about Sylvester. He said he has a piano. I don't have a piano. Like, how he get more than I got? You know what I'm saying? Like, so yeah, there was a lot of jealousy in that movie, and which is what prompted them to really get crazy, because they used an excuse that, oh, this woman was raped by a black dude. Nobody believed that, because even her husband didn't believe that. And at the end of the movie, he went home and beat her up.
Wow.
Well, let's continue here. It's ironic to kind of get this and then kind of see the contrast, because like I said, I remember that movie, but I tell you what, it makes me want to go watch it again. And I tell you this though, I did miss the Freemasonry stuff when I was a young man watching this movie. I didn't pick up on that as much as I would now, because I wasn't so privy to that part of it or what that meant. You know what I'm saying? So, but let's continue here.
When news spread, white men from other areas began to gather around in Sumner in order to join the riots. This ultimately led to the outbreak of what news publications called a race war. The white mob decided to burn down the settlement of Rosewood and break everything in sight. During this race war, it was declared that 4 white people and 20 black people died. However, many witnesses have said that the number of black people who were killed during the Rosewood Massacre was much higher, with some estimating that the body count could have been as high as 150. It was reported that the reason for this entire massacre stemmed from the fact that a black man assaulted and raped Frances. However, this is where the truth needs to come out. You see, it was easy to blame a black man. The fact that there was a black man who escaped from prison in the area further fueled the reasons white people had to blame a black man. However, it was later noted that this black man that attacked Frances was not actually a black man. You see, Sarah and her granddaughter did make it to the home of Francis on the day of her attack. They later told publications that they saw a white man leave the home through the back door when they were there. No details were provided as to why Sarah wasn't there when Francis decided to yell for help, however, even though they tried to hide the truth about the Rosewood Massacre from 1923, it slowly began to come out. It was discovered that Francis actually had a secret lover, a white man, who left her home while Sarah was there, doing her duties as a laundress. The man likely came to Francis after her husband left for work, which he did at a very early time in the morning. The reason why Sam Carter was sniffed out by the dogs that the mobs had used was not because he was hiding Jesse Hunter. No, instead, it was because he and Aaron Carrier, Sarah's cousin, helped the white man who came from Francis escape. Reports have said that this white man was a veteran, similar to both Sam and Aaron. He ran to Rosewood after he noted that he would be in trouble following the events that happened at Francis' residence.
He wasn't a very veteran. He was a Freemason, and they were Masons as well. And the movie it showed him flashing his Mason ring, and Sam looked at his ring, and that prompted him to want to help him, even though they didn't really deal with white folks like that. So he went ahead and helped him, and it ended up being his unraveling because that's what got him killed. So it's ironic how the narrative is changing, because instead of it dealing with Freemasonry, now he's saying a veteran. Like, a veteran? What? How would he know he was a veteran? I'm a vet, you a vet, help me out. No, they were Masons, both of them. Yeah. So let's continue.
Most believe that this white man was the one who abused Francis, but since she was in a secret relationship, it would not be easy for her to tell this to her husband, neighbor, or other people. The easiest way out for her was to just say that there was a black man in her house. With racism at a peak and lynching being a common occurrence at the time, Francis knew that blaming it on a black person would be easy. Everyone in Sumner would believe her. If you take a look at all of this, it means the Rosewood Massacre didn't happen because a black man decided to go into a white woman's house to abuse, rob, and rape her. Instead, it started because a white woman had an affair with a white man behind her husband's back. In order to save herself from trouble and humiliation, however, she decided to blame a black man. This led to a chain of events that later caused the town of Rosewood to cease to exist, and the death of possibly over 100 black people from the settlement. Rosewood was once a peaceful town, mostly consisting of black residents. However, after a black person was falsely accused of robbing and raping a white woman, things got chaotic. White mobs showed up in Rosewood, causing lynching and race crime to take place. Many black people lost their lives during this incident. They fought back, but were eventually driven out of the town that they once called home. This video gave you the truth behind the Rosewood Massacre. It's important that we acknowledge what really happened, as this is something that we need to know in order to truly understand black culture. Did you know the truth of the massacre that took place in 1923? Be sure to let me know your thoughts in the comments.
All right, so I'm going to end off there. Interesting stuff, because like I said, he there's been some different, it's a different depiction of what we remember from the movie. And I wouldn't definitely play the movie as historically accurate. I mean, I wouldn't say that in comparison to this, but it's definitely a stark contrast in some of those ideologies. He didn't even mention the Ben Range character, which I don't know how truthful that was. Now, he was a veteran. I don't recall them other guys being veterans. I really don't, but anyway, I wanted to go back and watch that movie again. What else was I going to mention? How they lie and say that it was one thing when it was something different. That's what I wanted to get into. So here recently, there was I was personally involved in a situation where a white woman came to me and told me that a black man had did some sexually deviant stuff to her, And I looked at her like she was out of her mind because I figured she was lying. And when they went up to the camera and looked, they didn't see anything. So I believe that woman was lying. And why she would to do that, you know, who knows? It's just in them to do that. She came up to me trying to make herself frantic, like she didn't even seem legitimate. Did that man leave? You just saw him walk out the door. What you talking about? Did that man leave?
Right.
I'm like, what is all this? She out panting and huffing as if she was just beat up with a mallet, you know, and you see, oh, I can't believe it. Oh my goodness. I'm like, this is a waiting room. What is you talking about? What happened? Oh, well, I'm not gonna say what he did because I don't want to expose his stuff, but you know, they called the police and whatever the case. Looked on the video, the police saw the video. Check this out. This part, I don't think I told you about this, Art. I know I told you about the situation, but I don't think I told me what happened. So they looked at the video. It was two cops that showed up. One cop saw the video and was like, I don't see anything. The other cop was like, we need to get this guy and arrest him. Like there was nothing there.
What?
Yeah. The cops was like, one cop was like, we need to arrest him. And the other cop was like, I don't see anything. Like there's nothing here. The people who saw it said they didn't see anything. So if there's nothing to be seen, that's the end of the story. She's a liar. In fact, you should lock her up for making a false report. But of course, they're not going to do that because it's a white woman. You know? But she sure said that it was a black dude that did something to her, and he probably never even looked at her. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
He was just taking care of his business, went on about his way, and here she come afterwards. Oh, did he leave? Did that guy leave? Like, oh, I'm like, what the heck is this? I'm like, I'm in Rosewood again. This is crazy.
Yeah, but you know, these occurrences are way too often, you know, happen all the time, and sometimes they don't have as big as, you know, repercussions as a Rosewood, but you know, a brother could lose his job over something, you know, minor or some lie. Brother could be arrested for some lie, you know. These things, it's crazy. These things still happen, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, I was gone as I leave, but and I'm not trying to say too much, but I wasn't there anymore. And the cop had called me and was like, "You need to get a report." I'm like, "I don't have anything to say." I told the supervisor what the lady told me, and she said, "We'll check the video." Well, they checked the video, and when I got back and said what happened, it was like they didn't see anything. There was nothing to see. But yet she was so frantic about something happened, and there was nothing happened. So somebody lying. Maybe the video line. You know what I'm saying? I don't know. I mean, I know. I'm just being facetious. The lady was a liar. You know what I'm saying? That whole thing was fabricated, obviously, and she should have been locked up. But you know, they're not gonna do that because that's not how they operate. You know, like I said, one cop saw it and was like, "I don't see anything," and the other cop was like, "We need to arrest this guy." Well, I'm sure when they showed it to the person in charge, the captain or the lieutenant, and he saw it, he was like, "Drop this, you idiots! Drop this. This is nothing to be dealing with. There's nothing here." You know what I'm saying? So I didn't hear anything else about it from that point, but I was happy to hear there was nothing else. There was nothing to be seen because that stupid lady, you know, her behavior was reprehensible, and she really should have been locked up. Like, why would you say that? And that we don't see nothing like that on here. Here's the camera. Here's the angle. That we don't see what you're saying. So what you lying? You obviously lying. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, in our culture, you lie on somebody to get them in trouble. Whatever that trouble was that they was gonna face, that falls on you now.
Okay, that's law.
Yeah. And that's what should have happened in these situations. And these people wouldn't do this ridiculous stuff. So, but yeah, interesting. This video was interesting. So yeah, we're gonna go ahead and forego this last one for the night. It's already midnight. Yeah, it's already midnight. I know you sleepy.
Yeah, God, I was just saying, but one last thing, on my part, with this video concerning this one, some people might say, well, brothers, this was 100 years ago. These things are not going to happen now, and I have to ask you, what are you reading when you read the scriptures? Because we can go to Matthew chapter 24, and I'll just begin reading at verse 3. And it says, and as he sat upon the Mount of Olives, the disciples came unto him privately, saying, tell us, when shall these things be? And what shall be the sign of your coming and of the end of the world? And Yahushua answered and said unto them, take heed that no man deceive you. For many shall come in my name, saying, I am Mashiach, and shall deceive many. And ye shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. And see that ye be not troubled. For all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. For nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. And there shall be famines and pestilence and earthquakes in diverse places. All these are the beginning of sorrows. You had mentioned that, before, I just kind of all being the beginning of sorrows, before we had gotten on earlier.
Right.
But this nations against nations, this is something that Mashiach was foretelling and prophesizing about. So not only did this nation against nation happen 100 years ago, it's foretold that it will happen again.
Indeed.
I digress.
Indeed, Akeem. Tell everybody for that text. I got one also to share with the people, for anybody who wants to know why we do these things, why we bring this stuff out every week, and talk about these different historical context. Everything is historical, that what we're dealing with. And I want to bring your attention to Devarim, Deuteronomy chapter 32 and verse 7. This is a profound scripture that lingers in my ruach constantly. It says, verse 7, it says, remember the days of old, consider the years of many generations. Ask your father, and he will show you, your elders, and they will tell you. So we are instructed by the Most High through the prophet Moshe to remember those things in historical context. Remember those things in history. Remember the days of old and deal with those things properly. Search information from the elders. Ask your father and the elders, and they'll give you the information that you don't have, the historical context that you weren't there to be a part of. You're getting those from that previous generation. These things are important from the Most High unto us. So that's why we do these every week. And that's why you'll find us on Yom Shishi evening getting into this information. So praise to the Abba. And man, we're going to go ahead and close it on out right here. We'll pick up this last video. For the record, this last video is going to be the Untold Horrors of King Leopold. What's his name?
Leopold.
Yeah, Leopold, who killed over 10 million Africans. Those weren't Africans; those were Israelites. Yeah, that's who he was killing. This wicked devil from Belgium was killing Israelites. He killed over 10 million of them. So we're gonna find out more about him and his horrible exploits. We'll probably check that out tomorrow, most high willing. But we're gonna go ahead and close out with the book of Ecclesiastes, chapter number 12 and verse number 13. Let us hear the conclusion of the whole matter. Fear the Most High and keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. It is so very important that we understand that in the conclusion of the whole matter, we are to fear the Most High and keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. At the end of the day, when it is all said and done, all the dust is settled, all the smoke is cleared, we will be judged on whether we have feared the Most High and kept His commandments. Why? Because this is the entire reason that we were made. I am your Akazaki Yahu, joined by my most esteemed Akinanaya, giving all praises, honor, and great esteem unto the Most High Power, Yahuwah Bahashem, Yahushua HaMashiach, and to the 12 tribes of Israel who were scattered to the four quarters of the earth. I say shalom, wa baruchim, that is peace and blessings. And I cannot wait to the day that the Most High brings us back together, and we are once again 12 tribes, one family, one nation under the Most High Power, under one covenant, back in our own land with a heart of flesh and no more a heart of stone, with our enemies, our adversaries, and all those who hate us under our feet. Until that day come, shalom, family.
Shalom, Mr. Pekah.
Praises to the Abba. Praise you, Abba. Yah. Hallelujah.